It's an honor to welcome you all to this talk show on the creative power of women during COVID-19. The COVID-19 pandemic has served as a great reminder to all of us about the frailty of our systems and structures. While it affects all of us indiscriminately but differently, women bear the largest brunt of the fallout. Through their resilience and empathetic view of the world, not specifically construed through the lens of authority and power alone, we bring to light the ethics of compassion, power which is driven through empathy, and the need for a humane ecosystem. Through this talk show, Her World tries to present this aspect of feminist authorship, creativity, and experience. We have with us three very special speakers, two authors and a playwright. Our first speaker for the day is Ms. Coral Dasgupta. She has been recently signed by Pam Macmillan for a 5-book series on mythological fiction. She's a compulsive storyteller. As of October 2020, Ma'am has published 5 books with Westlin, Neogi, Rupa, and Pam Macmillan. She is the founder of tellmeyourstory.biz, a story laboratory led by crowdsourced narratives. She consults with educational and corporate bodies on content and communication projects and workshops. Ms. Dasgupta is also recognized in the list of Innovator 25 Asia Pacific 2019, prepared by the Holmes Report, a New York-based PR news agency. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Our next speaker is Ms. Sujata Parashar, best-selling novelist, short story writer, and poet. Ms. Parashar became widely popular with her Pursuit series and has so far written 9 books across genres. This postgraduate in human rights, however, has a rich and diverse work experience. Apart from being and authoring bestsellers, human rights, and on various other topics, Nam is also the founder of a talk therapy-based platform, the Talk It Out Express, a platform to enhance emotional well-being. She was the recipient of the 100 Women Faces 2018 award, instituted by Women on It and the Confederation of Women Entrepreneurs of India. She was also presented the prestigious Karamveer Chakra Award, instituted by iCongo and the UN. You can find out more about her from her website. We're very happy to have you with us, ma'am. We welcome you.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Ms. Tejaswini Ranade Patwardhan, author and playwright. She is the director and founder of Open Minds Production. Open Minds Production believes in holistic theatre training and integrates dramatic art with conventional subjects. Affiliated with some of the best schools and studios, it is a hub for talent. She's been in this field for about 15 years and has been mentored by Samar Nakse, former dean of FTII. She follows the principles of Natya Shastra, the ancient Sanskrit treatise on dramatics. In recent years, she has been developing courses for schools and degree colleges. She's passionate about theatre, books, films, and all things drama. We welcome you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Our moderator for the day is Ms. Rakhi Bakshi. Her World is an initiative founded by ma'am, managing editor and director as well. She's a veteran media professional who served as media advisor to Lok Sabha Speaker and also championed the cause of gender rights as director, Women's Feature Service, and show host on Rajya Sabha TV. He has worked closely with many social organizations and currently serves as board member, One World Foundation, and is a role model for girls and women all over the world. Her World is a foundation founded by Rakhi ma'am, and it looks closely at various issues like gender, ecosystem, sustainability, and other social issues. We are present on various platforms across YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, and we would love for all of you to be connected with us in our journey. Our partners today are the Honor of Women, the Policy Center and Gender Lab of Miranda House, SDG Chopal, which is an initiative of Nagrik Foundation, and we also have Kacheri India as a partner. Without further ado, I invite Rakhi ma'am to kindly take over.
Okay. So thank you so much, Anushka, and welcome all of you. Anushka already has introduced in detail about all our esteemed speakers. speakers. So wonderful to have three very eminent women on this show today. Her world, as you know, is focused entirely on gender issues primarily, but also social issues. And our endeavor is to actually, look at all these dimensions which are around women. So without, again, not wasting much time, since all these speakers have really, spared their valuable time, because we know today is Ashmi. And I must also congratulate and greet each one, all of you, on this very auspicious day. It's also the power of women that is reflected when we worship Ma Durga. So welcome on board all these wonderful women. We are celebrating women power, we're celebrating Shakti, and we're celebrating the creative power also of women. So what one thought about the theme is that it's not that women can be bound by any limitation or any crisis. Put her in a situation, she will come out stronger and come out with more color and hue. And that's where we are. We have two authors here and one who's a playwright. And these women have a background which one can envy of, because they have wonderful, wonderful creative legacies to their work. So Koral, I'll start with you now. And I'm really amazed. You know, you're a friend and somebody who I've known, but you know, when you know about a woman's work and put that in a perspective, you feel so proud. And that's what I feel when I talk to you right now. The kind of work that you've done. Somebody who's been a communication professional, also understands marketing, also understands, interpersonal relationships, connections, but also puts the pen to the paper. And what a brilliant journey it has been. So many books, but the latest one, Ahalya, which the copy I've got right now with me here, and I'm so glad, Koral, that you've written this book, and the 5-book series that you are on board with Pan Macmillan, of writing all these interesting characters. Let's start with Ahalya, and let's start with your work, Koral, first of all, briefly, as to how this creative journey has been, and also whether lockdown or pandemic, do you think it kind of somewhere stops us, or no, it makes us stronger actually to go ahead?
Rakhi, thank you so much for the very kind and very graceful words. Firstly, the journey started very much in an odd way, because my husband happens to be an author, and he has written more than 10 books. So in our family, in my family, not in his family, in my family, everybody jokes that he is the original author and I'm the second-hand author. So the journey actually started when I was teaching in a management college. And what happened was, kids were in between class, they were busy in their mobile phones. And being a very young professor, you would probably know a little bit about this, that in India, if you don't have enough gray hairs, you are not considered learned enough. So the same happened with me. So with whatever preparation I went and whatever I felt that I have immensely to give to a class, it didn't work out. And what I realized was that the kids were already frustrated with reading about, I was taking consumer behavior class in their second year of post-graduation. So by the time they graduated to consumer behavior, they had read the Kellogg's and McDonald's to the extent that they were bored now. So they needed something different. So it just cracked all of a sudden, the way, that Bijli Kadakti Hai types, I got an idea that why not teach them with the help of Bollywood brands.
Okay.
Through brand personalities. And so I brought Shah Rukh Khan and Bachchan and Salman Khan in my classroom. And what happened was attention as well as attendance improved. And I was getting superb ratings. So I was basically writing down, a lot of the discussions were impromptu, the case studies that we were creating were impromptu. So I was documenting those for next year. And I was also trying to, research a little more to figure that the hypothesis that I'm approaching with, what kind of support does it have in popular media.
सारे सही है यार, और ये जो तूने छोड़ा है वो मुझे भी नहीं पता.
So the entire content that came up, that was almost the structure of a book, because a lot of chapter headings from a basic consumer behavior book was there. So my book, that became a book, and I was extremely well fed in, well consumed in Shah Rukh Khan. So my first book
Okay.
was actually a consumer behavior study with Shah Rukh Khan as case study. It's called Power of a Common Man. And Westland took it within 3 months of me finishing the manuscript.
In
So
fact, you mentioned Shah Rukh Khan as being the most hardworking somewhere I was reading about in an interview.
you give me any kind of adjective, it is a good adjective, I'll probably use it for Shah Rukh. So, so that was the first book that happened. Post that, I shifted to to fiction because uh,
Okay.
everybody has a lot of stories, and I did start believing that my writing is worth reading. The first book gave me that kind of confidence. And coming to your last question, which is about lockdown, yes, when we started, I think one of the very signature statements that my husband still teases me about is, I told my house that in the absence of a maid, I'm not the proxy maid. And so I got everybody up on their heels and got everybody to help. It was not that it was a it was not a foolproof help, but people started understanding that every bit of onus of running the house cannot go to the lady of the house. Uh,
Yeah.
and they all started helping in their own way, not
Very.
in the way that actually the help mattered in the first day, but the effort showed that everybody was taking note and everybody wanted to help. And
Okay.
work wise, I had the I mean, I had the option of completely perishing because I didn't have time, and I had the option of finding myself in some way or the other, which I did. And I'm sure I'll get more opportunity to talk about this, and I should leave the stage for others.
Yeah, I guess you really summed it up very briefly but very nicely. And I think that's what I think, taking a cue from the last line that you spoke, and which was my question also, which you answered, Koral, is that how women try to do as much, especially during the lockdown also. Because there was time. I think so many women that I know, so many of my friends who started to paint, who started to use their time at home in terms of, let's say, arranging flowers, taking an interest in gardening, within the home or around it. Let's look at environment, let's look at education. We found new ways. Somebody took to photography. I think this has been a very kind of new dimension, I would say. We are in a crisis time. It's very unfortunate because we're seeing some very depressing stories around us. But I think these are the silver linings. Sujata, what would you say? Talk about your journey and also about the lockdown experience, which
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, Rakhi. First of all, yeah, thank you. I got your question. Thank you. First of all, congratulations and thanks for this talk show. Amazing. I'm very happy to be here to share my thoughts on this very interesting topic. But I'm also glad that you started a talk show like this. I think much needed. So many congratulations to you and your team. Now, before I take that question about the lockdown period, I do have a few remarks to make about, one is related to what Koral just mentioned about women, people not taking women very seriously. I have, if they don't have gray hair, so they don't take them very seriously as professors and all. And I have faced this throughout my life because I have somewhat a babyish face, and that works to my advantage in certain areas. But as far as my work is concerned, I have been a professional gypsy throughout my life. I started off with the travel trade, uh, with um, uh, with an airline, with an international airline, Scandinavian Airlines, and I was very young at that time. I was around 2021 when I started working. So I used to wear my uniform and go. I was also doing a course in travel and tourism, and I got this job. So I used to travel, and this was in Delhi. So those days, blue lines used to run, in Delhi. And I used to travel in my uniform, and people would ask me, which school are you in? Where are you studying? So this is a very smart uniform. Because I used to look so young, and there were times when I was helping out passengers or clients, and they would want someone else to come and help them because they thought I was a trainee, whereas I was a full-fledged employee of the airline. So throughout my life, in different junctures, I have faced this. I have to look big. So my attempt has always been like that, thoda bada lagna chahiye wherever I am going or whatever. People won't take me seriously on my on the face value. They would always, only when I would start talking and maybe people know me a little more, would they take me seriously? Okay, she is someone who has a thought, or who has. Otherwise, mostly they would even if I go to a shop, they would call my friend madam, and they would address me as acha beta aapko kya de, something like that. So that is something that I have also faced, Coral. Not only you, I think this is a common thing that people in India, they expect you to look in a certain way. Women especially, they only take them seriously if you look in a certain way, you appear in a certain manner.
Yeah.
Okay, so that was one part of it. And the other thing is related to the theme that you've picked up very nicely for today's discussion. There's this word power. And I want to draw everybody's attention to this word power. Mostly this word is associated with men. Now, if you were to ask someone, name 3 powerful individuals, chances are most of them would name 3 top men. They may say Nelson Mandela, Gandhi, or Jeff Bezos, or I don't know, whosoever. The top 3 they will mention would be, chances are more that they would mention men. Okay, so they associate this word with men. However, we recognize, we acknowledge, especially during these times, when Navratri is happening or when Durga Puja is happening, everybody recognizes the feminine energy and how important or how powerful that energy is, as powerful or perhaps even more than the masculine energy. Yet we ignore it, we neglect it at other times. We are not paying attention to it in the name of tradition, in the name of culture. We just, do like society. And when I'm saying we, I mean the society at large, in the name of tradition, goes on to do everything that they have to do, to perpetuate patriarchy, right? So this is something that I wanted to start off with. Now, coming to the lockdown situation, it's very strange that unlike Coral, I have had throughout my life, because I've been born and brought up in a family background. I got married to a family where again everything was laid out. I didn't have to do much. I'm not a kitchen person at all. So everything was taken care of in the house. And now I'm a single parent. I have been a single parent for the past about 10 years now. I have lived in Singapore. There, of course, again, I had help once or twice a week, and you didn't have to had to do much there. So again, food-wise also, you could go to food courts and all that. So basically what I'm trying to say here is that I wasn't the typical lady of the house kind of a person ever. This lockdown has taught me what a lady of the house has to go through. Every little thing takes time, takes so much of effort. And I had to, the first few days, I was literally crying because, and of course, we are a team. I have other members also in the house who take care, and everybody was doing their bit. But I had to do my bit as well. And for some time it overwhelmed me. Okay, I didn't know, it stressed me out. I didn't know what to do. Outside job, you give me anything, I will do it. And I was doing that as well. I was going out and getting stuff and all that I was doing. But going into the kitchen, cooking was not my game at all. But I had to do it. And once I started doing it, I realized I'm good at it. And then I was, whether someone else was patting my back or not, whether they liked my food or not, I was patting my back that I am being able to do it, and I'm doing a good job. From anything you tell me to chop vegetables, to cook something, whatever, I am being able to. So this lockdown has taught me that everything is there. Like, we are multitaskers. We can do anything and everything that we want.
That's exactly, Sujata. Thank you so much. Is my point, and that's why I thought that we should discuss this. Maybe talk about this whole energy that we always have inside us. It's
Yes.
just that people judge us and people tell us, "Oh, you can do this, you can't do this." I think we can do many things. It's
Yes.
just that
You have to recognize that. You just have to recognize that, and we are all empowered beings, men and women both. Women are empowered. We don't need empowering. People just have to recognize that aspect and give us that chance, and we can do a great job of it. Like I did.
I take that line from here and go to Tejaswini. Give us that chance, Tejaswini. Do you think we have been given enough chance, or do you think we want to snatch it, or do you think we need to get it? I mean, sorry to put it now like this before you. Of course, you talk about your little journey, but also talk about these chances being given or being taken by women. Tejaswini.
Firstly, thanks, Rakhi, for having me here, having all of us here. I love the name of your series, Her World, looking at world from a feminine perspective. Yeah. And it's a nice time, Navaratri, Navadurga. So women have all the power for nourishing Gauri and Kali. And talking about chances, when you tell your daughter, you can do it, I don't think that is required, because she assumes that she can do it. So there is no need to particularly tell her कि हाँ बेटा कुछ भी कर सकते हो, उसे पता ही नहीं है कि वो ये नहीं कर सकती, तो उसे ये बताना क्यों है? Why narrow down her vision is what I think. And how I started my journey, my first job was as a political correspondent at the age of 17 for Times of India. So I began as a journalist. I was freelancing. I went on to do my master's in film direction. And because I had been writing all along, I eventually figured out that writing is what really interests me more than anything else. So currently, I write plays for drama schools across India. My plays are also performed outside India. And interestingly, how I began Open Minds Productions, my company, I was working as a freelance writer, earning well, having a good time working. When my child was about 6-7 years old, I figured out that it was very difficult to take her all the way to Prithvi and South Bombay and Dadar to watch plays, because I stay in Powai. और ये होता है कि अगर आप कुएं के पास नहीं जा सकते तो कुआं खोद लो, तो मैंने कुआं खोद लिया. So I started Open Minds, which is all about plays and discovering yourself through theater. And I teach all aspects of theater. Acting is one minuscule part of drama. It is not synonymous with drama. There is set designing, costume designing, writing, direction. So 7-year-old child can write a 1-minute script and direct it as well. All of that is possible. Coming to the other thing about chances, so you don't need to snatch chances. There are enough chances in the world, and there is more than enough population. There is work for all. Okay. How passionate are you? How did lockdown affect me? Because I think Korul and Sujata gave such wonderful insight about probably discovering yourself as a homemaker. That was one aspect. But what happened interestingly in our household is when our house help wasn't available anymore, all of us worked together as a team. So एक दिन छोड़ के, one day you sweep the house, one day you cook something, other day I'll do something. We alternated between our chores.
Yeah.
So it became interesting. And what do you want to cook? Look up a recipe, cook something new. We did all of that. So nobody was bored. You swept house yesterday, I'll sweep today. You do something else. Okay. So it became teamwork. It became interesting. And I think we discovered how important rest of the people are in our lives, which we probably don't. This lockdown was a boon in disguise in sorts.
Yeah, I think Tejaswin, that's again a very good line. I think we're picking up a lot of interesting points here. How to connect beautifully. I think the lockdown experience, I think we'll share this here. We all realized how it is important to connect with not only our own, but also some of these people. I mean, look at the kind of people, strangers have helped strangers. They have reached out to people on social media. You know, somebody's talking to someone and connecting again. So I think this is discovering your inner strength, which also has come to the fore. And I think women are better at that oral, but coming down to your writing and to the book and also this whole feminist ideas. Why now you thought about writing this series, and why did you pick up Ahilya, and then there are other names as well that you're thinking about, or they're already I think finalized those four other names. Why this series at all, and why did you pick Ahilya only?
Well, see, these five are called Panchkanyas, and Panchkanya is a term used in the epics. It is a Sanskrit sloka is there, which says that if you recite the name of Panchkanyas every day, you will be spiritually strengthened, and you will have a lot of insights within you. These names are not just names; they were so powerful women that they are capable of impacting you. And then next thing that I find is that Panchkanyas, when translated, and this translation has not been done by me, but very, very learned scholars from another century, the Panchkanyas are translated as five virgins. So when you look at these five, Ahalya, Kunti, Draupadi, Mandodari, Tara, I know that Mandodari and Tara people don't know enough about, but Ahalya, Kunti, Draupadi people know a little about. If not Ahalya, at least Kunti and Draupadi. Virgins? So it was quite an interesting thing for me to delve into and figure out why are they called Panchkanyas, and what is the construct of Panchkanya. And I figured that they have been in the sloka itself, they have been called satis. Sati, which means the purest one. So today in our feminism debates, we are talking about the purity of mind, the purity of your functions, the purity of your intuitions, your intentions, and not body. Many, many years ago, centuries and thousands of years ago, there were Hindu texts which were progressive and deep enough not to bind a single individual by the construct of that person's body, because Hindu texts always say that a body is temporary. It holds a soul for a limited period of time. What you see beyond the body, the mind or the soul, which exists beyond the body, is the actual existence. So, here also, in the women's context as well, Hindu texts don't consider a woman or don't judge a woman by what has happened with her body. It judges, or it not, doesn't judge, it actually considers the bigness or the vastness of a woman simply from the chain of thought that what were her intuitions, what were her intentions, how did she face the problems of her life and make sure that whatever is the solution that she digs out makes good for a greater population and not just doesn't just fulfill her selfish ambitions. Having said that, having said that,
Your Koral,
I,
before you go ahead,
I will just finish this sentence, Rakhi, that uh, having said that, the epics also left room for each woman to fulfill whatever she had come in the earth for, simply from a self-centered perspective. So it doesn't leave either, it doesn't make anybody sacrifice either. It's like you are internally fulfilled as a person, you are fulfilled as a social being. You contribute as a person, you contribute as a social being. Yes.
Beautiful.
No. But, I wanted to ask Koral is, so a pertinent point here, but very good theme that you've taken on, and especially that these are all women that you're. And when I'm reading Ahalya, so many emotions one goes through. I mean, what she has gone through, you bring out so poignantly all these points here. But talking about the modern India or modern context and the new woman in new India, these words of virtue, sanskar, chastity, virginity, values, how purity, Coral, how would you look at the current context of women? You have, you have women taking their path of walking on their own choices, uh, and compare this to these women in the past, mythology. What would you say, and how much focus should we give on to these points, and how?
At every era, I believe that intellectuals are faced with that same question over and over again. These questions are, who am I and where do I come from? They try to look back to their history, and when they are not satisfied with what they find in history, they go to mythology. Now, at every era, the stories are defined by the politics of that era. So when we heard the story of Ahalya as a child, the politics of that era told us that Ahalya was cheated by Indra. That was one school of thought. The other school of thought was Ahalya was aware of who had come to her in disguise of Gautam, but she gave in because she herself was lustful about Indra. Now, today's context, the time that we stand today, it gives us the opportunity, or it actually invites us to look at the interpretation of these stories from a far more broader aspect, and not from the patriarchal explanation of these stories. So now when we look at it today, the audience is also probably more open to accept this kind of an interpretation, where I completely take it to a different philosophical level, with the way I have defined Indra, for example, right? Uh,
True. Yeah.
when I
Yeah.
when you look at Indra here, Indra is not just a deity who had come to cheat. Indra was inbuilt in Ahalya's making, right? And the philosophy that is inside you, in the ingredients of your make, how do you treat that ingredient separately? It can't separate. You have to go back. Coming to Gautam, or coming to Brahma, rather, at every era, our parents try to give us what they think is right. Whatever is their right, they try to give their children that aspect of right from a very positive standpoint, not that they are doing it from a imposure standpoint. They are doing it from a positive standpoint. We all try to give our best to the ones that we love. And my best may not be the best of the upcoming era, which we forget. Brahma did just that. He gave what he thought is best and forgot that the generation next probably had redefined best. And he himself is responsible in the changing perspective of every era. It's vast, it's too deep. Where do I start and where do I end?
I think, yeah, I think that would be very interesting, and I think I would tell all our viewers to maybe just look at these works. I mean, maybe Halya to begin with, and also some of these other books also that Coral has written. And but that takes me to Sujata again, to you. In your book, whether pursuit of ecstasy, pursuit of infidelity, or pursuit of lesser offense.
Yeah.
That's what, and maybe so many others, actually 10. I think I remember, and many more, which you must be thinking about. You take on these subjects which people have problem talking about or coming out in the open with, but they are there. There is a hushish, element about it. You talk about it. You're talking about relationship. You're talking about the various dimensions of marriage. Uh, Tell us the whole genesis, the idea of, or the theme of all these writings. I mean, do you see a pattern that you go on, or these are different narratives?
I started off as a chance writer. I wasn't meaning to, I wasn't wanting to be a writer. It just so happened that there was a trigger. In Pursuit of Infidelity happened totally, completely by chance and unconsciously. There was a question in my mind. I had an interaction because I also work in the social sector with women. And I was involved in a project, in a freelance project, which got me talking to a set of women, married women. And whatever they shared, during our talk kind of disturbed me enough to come back home and start jotting down something. The next day, thankfully, I hadn't deleted it. Next day, I came back again and, started writing it in a form of a story. Halfway through, I realized this was becoming very interesting. So I thought maybe just let me try and reach out to a few publishers. I hadn't even completed the book. And I just sent a few samples to some of the publishers, including Rupa was one of them. So after a few months, I received, almost everybody politely refused, but Rupa and one another publisher, they came back to me and said that they were interested in the book. And then they, of course, wanted me to complete the entire manuscript and reach out to them after I've completed, which I did. And Rupa, of course, gave me a better deal. The contract was signed, and I started writing in 2008. This came out in late 2009. The book was published. Now, till that time, even after the book was published and it made, it did quite well, it did not strike me that I am a writer, or I have now become a writer. I am in the company of writers, and I should be, doing something that I look, behave, or I don't know, appear like a writer. So I wrote my second book just to justify that I am a writer and I can write. I can really write. It's not a fluke. I can write other stories. So Ecstasy happened in that sense. Now, these two books were just experiments. However, my experiments with writing continued. I wasn't writing with, there was no pattern as such. My writing, I have over the years realized that the triggers are always questions that are left unanswered, questions that disturb me, questions for which no one else can give me a good answer, or maybe their answers don't satisfy me. So for example, the infertility one happened because I could see that the women were suffering. In real life, they were suffering. They knew that their husbands were having affairs or were married, and yet they were sticking by them because they were economically dependent. So purposefully in my book, I made the character equal. The female lead character was equal to her husband in every which way, and she is the one who goes and commits suicide. She is the one who commits infidelity. The word suicide is going on in my mind for a while because of the SSR case. I'm sorry about that. I don't know where it came from.
About mental well-being in
mental
some of
well-being, yeah, and that aspect, yeah. So anyway, so now I did all that purposefully, and you know what? Many readers, men and women, came back to me and said, they sent me hate mails saying that, how can a woman cut her cake and eat it too? So one of them wrote it like that because the woman's infidelity is disclosed, and both of them, husband and wife, both of them have affairs. The husband has a one-night stand while the woman is involved with her ex-classmate or something. So in every aspect, I show them equal. However, the woman goes and has the affair first, and then she discovers that the husband has had a one-night stand. Now the husband finds out about the wife's cheating, but the wife finds out about the husband's cheating, but the husband doesn't come to know about her infidelity. And that was the grouse of almost all the readers, or many readers, at least men readers, who came back and said that, this can't happen in India. An Indian woman can't behave like this. So I was just exploring. I was seeking answers myself because I wanted to study and see what happens when both of them are economically independent and equal in every which way, and they are loving couple. There's nothing wrong between them, but still there is some gap. And so how will they react? How will the readers react to a woman like that, who is a good woman otherwise, a loving mother, etc.?
That's the job of Sujata, of a creative person, also looking at fiction. It doesn't have any boundary. It doesn't have any such framework.
Yes.
Yeah. So I guess you have the creative liberty, and that's what artists, poets, or literatures. I mean, they have this open sky in front of them, the vast horizon on which they can write, pen down anything or paint. Archana ji Bhattacharya has a question, but Archana ji, I'll come back to later. Let me also go to Tejaswini now and ask her as to what has been the pursuit of her when she chooses a subject of her theater, or when she goes out to children and work. What is it that drives you, Tejaswini?
Real life. I think theater has to mirror life. There is no other way. And for me, theater, and theater for women in particular, it has to be self-introspective. I give you an example. There is this play of mine which is very popular. It's called Namad, and it is about men's liberation. Because when we talk of women empowerment, we also have to realize this is the other side of it. We have to realize that men also face a lot of pressures. How many of us have friends around, couples, where you have a house husband and a woman is working and people are okay with it? Quite few, not many of them. How many of us know friends, I do a lot, where a young man wanted to pursue arts or liberal arts or anything else, but he was compelled to take up engineering and medicine just because they are paying professions. So men also undergo a lot of pressures, and this also needs to be spoken about. When you talk of women empowerment, it cannot happen unless pressures that men undergo are also spoken about, because we are a team. Men and women are a team. We are not rivals. We have
One
to
of the
work
things I've
together.
always emphasized on is that, in this whole challenge of how to look at women empowerment, we have to talk to men and boys. So Tejaswini, yes, I think I agree there that we need to do that. Maybe let's allow Archana Bhattacharya ji. She has a question.
Could I answer her question? I did read a question. I wanted to
that you want to answer?
respond to that. So she has put in a query saying that women need to justify the stand they take. Most often, society wants them to justify, compels them to justify. I haven't justified the stance I have taken quite a few times. And I have realized whenever I don't justify, those are the times I'm happiest. Go ahead and do what you want to. Why do you want to justify? You justify only when you want other people to agree with you. Not really. If I know I'm morally right, go ahead and do it. You're not answerable to anyone but yourself and probably people who are closest to you, your immediate family. That's it. Why justify it? Why give them that importance of you justifying to them?
Yeah,
is my perspective.
That's your perspective. Koral, how would you really look at this whole idea of how one is being seen at or looked at, especially women? This whole idea of getting judged, or as we were just discussing, justification, or how much should you be valued, and in what manner? All these questions are being asked today, these times, and it has taken a little bit of journey for women to even ask. Frankly, you're asking because now you understand you need to ask. What is it like today, especially for a creative person, especially for a woman who's working or into a creative pursuit? Do you think it's pressurizing, or do you think it's all fine?
Rakhi, the book that we had been talking about, Ahalya, is a part of the 5-book series, which is called the Sati series, which led me to actually understand what Sati is, right? Sati is in one word. If you look at Sati, it means pure. Now, purity doesn't, as I said right in the beginning, that it doesn't just relate to your physical purity, that you are untouched and all that, which is a very, very limiting construct to be attributed to this word. Sati also means your strength of character. It also means how capable you are in justifying your acts and your decisions to yourself, irrespective of whatever the world says about you. So Sati, when we say that Sati means pure and untouched, it means how untouched can you remain about your decisions and about the person that you originally were, without being affected by what the society wants you to be, by putting their judgment, their opinion, their thoughts on the person that they want you to be. So that is my understanding of this entire judgment scenario. We are constantly judged. We are judged in the right way and in the wrong way. Today, if you look at social media, everybody is trying to create a statement. Everybody is trying to shout on top of their voices to justify themselves that they are right. If you are very clear about the person that you are and what you have come to this earth for, or what is your soul journey which will lead towards your personal goals or your social goals, you wouldn't be affected by what others throw at you. People, if they are throwing something at you, they will throw some laddus at you, and they will also throw some mud at you. You cannot be affected by either. And even if you are affected, it can be a temporary effect, affecting. It cannot be a permanent affecting.
Can I add a point, Rakhi?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, very well said, Coral. For me, what I understand is no reaction is also a reaction. Not reacting to anything is also reacting. You are not important enough for me to react. You don't affect me in any way. I'll carry on.
Not reacting is linear or non-linear thing that you put on someone. My idea of saying this is very simple, that whoever says whatever to me, I am very clear about why I had come to this earth for, what I wanted to become, and who I am. As the moment that gets tarnished by you saying something to me, the moment you say that you have a green sari but you don't have a red sari, and I start asking for a red sari, that is when I have shifted from my sati status. It is as simple as that, or as complicated as that.
Sujata, the same question to you. Is it pressurizing to be, to be a creative person at its best, or a working professional? Sometimes people try to segregate you and say, oh, you're different because you're trying to be ambitious. Now, ambition has taken a different, note altogether to the word. Sujata, how would you look at it? I mean, is there a pressure or is there no pressure?
Yes, there are pressure. I would lie if I say there are no pressures, but I mean, in my case, I am a very sensitive person, and I think as writers and poets, all of us are very sensitive. We do get affected by what is being said, and in this era of social media and being out there all the time, even a little comma you didn't put, or a word written wrong, or placed wrong, and it affects you. It affects me, at least, because I know that people are there out there judging me. They are basing me, my personality, my whole as a person, I'm someone completely different than who I am as a writer. Of course, there is a meeting point somewhere, but generally at home I am more childlike, not childish, but childlike. I like to be very natural and sorry, what did you say?
I said freedom
I
loving.
missed that. Yeah, right. Yeah. So, and that is not what I would want my readers to see, because I know that if I put that persona out there, and some of it comes out anyway, even without trying, I am being not, I have faced this also, that people tend to kind of look at you in a certain way. Oh, she is behaving like this, she is not important enough. Or if she is behaving or talking in a certain way, then she must be very important person, or she so we are all of us, I'm not saying it's this is happening only with me. I think with most of us, this is what happens. We put up a different persona completely in front of the world, and we are a different person inside our houses. And I think somewhere or the other, it's the pressure that is acting, or that is, I wouldn't like to do that. So I like to be my natural self outside as well. In front of others also, I would like to be myself. But because of this pressure thing that comes in, I behave in a certain way. I have to change myself close certain aspects of me, my personality, and show a certain other aspect of myself to the world, to appear that, okay, I can do the job that I'm known for, or as a writer, I can give you this thing or whatever. There is no set criteria or anything that for a writer, you have to have this. All you need, three things that a writer needs, is curiosity, imagination, and compassion. If you have these three things, if you are compassionate, you can relate, you can bring that emotion, and you can put it in your stories. If you are curious, you will get those ideas, you will get those stories. And if you have, of course, all writers, all creative people need imagination. Think out of the box like Coral did for her book, Ahelya, and she became curious about it, and she wanted to write a story about it. And I should bring in my book also, The Temple Bar Woman, which is the latest book. Now that book is, I had no intention of writing this particular story. It's a revenge story of a rape survivor. However, I started writing it out of an angst. I live in Delhi, and even before the Nirbhaya case happened, there were several such other brutal cases I had heard of. Or when you live in a certain in a city and you keep hearing negative things so many times, it works on you, especially as a creative person, as a writer, it works on you. And so I was thinking that I should contribute some bit. I'm living here, so I should be able to write a story at least and destigmatize this whole rape thing. The word itself is so demeaning, and it's not the victim's fault at all. So from there, the trigger for the story began. But then I left it because I was writing another book, so I left it. And in December 2012, I think the sad incident happened, Nirbhaya thing happened, and that's when I picked up the threads again, and I started writing this. Now, backdrop of this particular story is political. I know nothing about. I don't follow politics. Okay, I just have a superficial understanding, and that is all that I have. If something interests me, I follow it, but otherwise, on the whole, I stay away from it. But the backdrop for this story is politics, and the woman, the prime character, is from a village. I have always created characters who are from urban, who are urban working professionals. Most of the characters have been like that in all my stories. So I had to create a village school teacher. I had to create this village scenario. The backdrop was again, as I mentioned, politics, a large part of it. And then I have also dealt with prostitution and, the state of women sex workers. So all these were serious aspects, serious things. And I had to...
Sujata, that I want to ask both you and Coral here as writers is that how much of, you talked about this word compassion, very, very important, pertinent. Also empathy. I think for me, if you ask me as a media professional, communication person, I would say, and as a sensitive human being, I would say that empathy is another very important term. And I think in lockdown, we have actually understood the word, whole value of this word. But Coral and Sujata, how much as a writer do you separate what's happening around or to the reality and then to the fiction part? I mean, is it that you're really attached somewhere in your writing it reflects, or is it that you can go in an entirely new theme and talk about?
Well, I tend to get attached. I don't know, when I'm writing a story, I'm attached to it. Once it is done, then it is out there, and even then the attachment stays. So it's not that I'm unattached. I get involved. Sometimes I do experience the kind of emotions the character is going through. And I totally agree, compassion and empathy is going to be, it's now considered a soft skill, mostly ignored, but it is going to be the skill that will be required in the next era. Already now, corporates and everybody will have to focus on compassion. And that is why Dalai Lama has already started, wherever he goes, he talks about why we must have leaders with compassion. If our leaders lack compassion, they will not be able to run successful organizations.
That compassion is something that is also reflected when I see Coral's work. I mean, when she takes on these characters, very important characters, and I'm glad that she's, in fact, Mandodari and Tara, Coral, that women characters that you're looking at in your next books. I think it's a very good find. It's a new dimension of looking at women and her, span of character the range of character that she presents or reflects, through your writing, it's reflected more. Coral, how would you look at it? I mean, this whole idea of, looking at one prism or looking at many dimensions that you bring about?
Rakhi, what you asked is very important and very relevant because yes, I must admit that I get very, very badly affected, very, very badly attached with everything that is happening around. Everything in the sense, everything that your conscience doesn't allow you to aspect as happening as a reality of your world, the world that you want to craft with a lot of care and a lot of tenderness. I take this opportunity to congratulate Sujata for the mental health work that she has started.
Thank you.
And just like she mentioned some time back, the Sushant Singh Rajput case had very deeply affected me as well. And it is not just Sushant Singh, you know, if you remember some years back, there was an army school, children were killed in Pakistan, Peshawar. I see my family in those. Not that I have anybody, I know anybody from Sushant Singh's family or anybody in Peshawar, but children.
Yeah.
Or if I come to the Sushant's case, a guy like that, I would want my child to grow up as someone like that, so intelligent, so beautiful, so talented. I would want that him to become someone like that. But I wouldn't want him to have the kind of unfortunate things that has happened with him. Now, how do I protect him? How on earth do I protect him from the way the world is shaping up today? So I do get affected. And when I get affected, I start looking for answers that are not very openly available, but you have to really research or think or investigate to figure out what is happening and why it is happening. So when I was, for example, after Ahalya comes Kunti, and at a time when I was writing Kunti, that was the time when a lot of socio-political ripples were taking place. I wouldn't name which. And it prompted me to, you know, take my creativity in a completely different aspect, which even I was not looking at. I started trying to figure that what would be Kunti's relationship with someone like Bhishma. Because whatever Kunti was going through, whatever I know of Kunti, or whatever the world knows of Kunti, or whatever were the complaints that Kunti may have had about her life, being in a position that she was into, a lot of that was Bhishma's giving in a lot direct and indirect ways. So I tried to, you know, look at that aspect, which the epics don't cover, which popular literature or popular opinion of the epics don't cover. But then there is a lot of material in it that what was Kunti's relationship with Bhishma. So that is the analytic bent of mind that every creative person has. And I try to channelize my agony through my stories, my research, my findings, and try to include them in this way, trying to figure that why is something happening and what is the in-depth reason behind it. Because whatever is happening cannot happen because of some ABC data points that are visible today. The concentric circles run far, far bigger ripples in the water. And so towards the edge of the water is the real reason which actually has birthed all these ripples to converge in one center point, right? Someone has thrown a stone there, and from there, these ripples have formed. I try to go back to that stone, and I try to not only educate myself, but I try to tell my 8-year-old son in a language that he would understand, I believe. I try to tell him about things that disturb me in a way that doesn't disturb him, but in a way that he gets a little more conscious. I don't know whether I'm doing the right thing or I'm doing the wrong thing. I'm doing it.
That I would say, Koral, is a very resilient and smart thing to do. And I think that reflects, you know, you evolve. I mean, one has seen that, you know, through your creative journey also, one can see that, you know, you evolve each time. There are new insights to gain. So, Jaswini, what would you say that, you know, how your work gets affected or, you know, by the things around you, by the society, what's happening around? Or is it that you take on an entirely new theme, different theme altogether? I mean, the question that I've asked to both Koral and Sujata, the same to you here.
You know, what I do quite often, maybe once or twice in year, is playback theater. And playback theater is all about empathizing with each other. So what Koral and Sujata said, both of them, it converges in playback theater. For instance, if a child, an 8-year-old, has an issue with his parent or has an issue with his peer, he's being bullied in class, but he's not able to talk back to bully or talk back to his teacher, tell his teacher. If that is played in front of him, with him in the audience, with his teacher, with his parents in the audience, that child gets a platform to let his emotions out, to confront him, to talk to his parents. So playback theater is a wonderful medium which can greatly help in mental health. Also, what we do year long, when I talk about set designing, which I teach in schools, set designing also has an element of empathy. What you see around when you create a character, when you write down everything about your character before writing a story or writing a play, what all the students do, they need to empathize. What would the character think? Where does this character live? How would that character deal with different situations? So theater and writing, all of these things help towards mental health. And I think it should be a part. It should be a part of school. It should be a part of everyday life. Because all of us are storytellers. All of us are. Even a 2-year-old, he's playing in the lobby, he comes back home, he tells his mom, आज ना उसने मुझे ऐसे मारा, या आज ना वो गिर रहा था राजेश, मैंने उसको जाके help किया. So he becomes the hero. Somebody else is in need, and I went ahead and saved him. This is storytelling. You don't need to teach storytelling. It is inbuilt in us. You just need to polish it maybe, but all of us are storytellers.
So storytelling, yes. But now I'm moving to some serious elements, questions, issues also. You know, three of you, and briefly maybe answer. You know, at a time that we're talking about all this, there are challenges that women are facing. When lockdown, women have faced violence at home, all kinds of challenges where some of them have talked about it, some of them have tried to take recourse, some of them have got it, some of them have not. There are crimes which are happening against women and young girls, which is also around us. We're watching it. Do you think it has made us more aggressive as women? Sometimes we are thinking, oh, why is this happening? I mean, you talk about this whole feminine character. We have so much like creativity, softness. At the same time, watching this has made us a little bit of, I mean, this word aggression comes to my mind. Three of you, Koral, Sujata, and Tejaswini, how would you really look at it? Especially the current time, I would tell you.
Sujata, you would like to go first?
Well, see, as a psychosocial trainer, and I run this platform called Talk It Out Express, this is what we do. This is what we address, you know, emotions, strong negative emotions, and how to deal with them, how to regulate them. In the lockdown period, you would be amazed to see that we have been counseling a lot number of people, and most of them women, on how to deal with the situation at home, you know, how to be able to communicate whatever they are going through in an effective manner. Aggression does not come readily to women, but when things go beyond their control and they don't know how to react, then that is it sprouts from anger, often sprouts from hopelessness, a feeling of hopelessness, a feeling of helplessness. So if we have to treat anger, it's not the anger that needs to be treated, it's the feeling of hopelessness and helplessness that needs to be treated, that needs to be addressed. So in the lockdown period, what the women have been facing is that apart from doing everything for the family, they are suffering silently because of the dominating attitude or whatever, the attitude of the husband or the in-laws, etc. And mostly what we guide them or what we tell them is that, first of all, it is important to recognize which exact emotion, strong negative emotion are they feeling. Once that comes out, once that comes into the cognition part of the brain, then we can deal with it. So if it is really anger for a small little thing, it will be dealt in a different way. But if it is sprouting from years of neglect, years of being ignored and suffering abuse, then there is another different way of dealing with it. So all this thing comes out when you are talking. So it is extremely important to reach out to a professional, or to at least reach out to a trustworthy someone, a friend or someone, and vent out. Venting out does three things. The first thing, it reduces the intensity of the emotion. So if you're very angry, that anger will subside a little as soon as you start talking. Second thing it does is that it gives clarity to what is the emotion that is troubling you. So you get the idea that, okay, this is why I'm feeling painful or angry or whatever. And the third thing it does is the brain starts actively looking for solutions, and then you start your action. So action happens. So this is my take on it. Koral?
I think Sujata will have to have a different edition also on these issues, which of course we'll plan and let you know. Also, Koral, your thought.
See, I feel that there is a section which is extremely unfortunate to be going through whatever they are going through. And that is not limited to, in education is not the factor. I mean, lack of education is not the factor. Lack of money is not the factor. The only factor that is there is the lack of right attitude, or lack of confidence to go ahead and correct things, and not accept and say very firmly that certain things will not be accepted. And the way I look at it is that today, right from various angles, we hear about this term women empowerment, which in our discussion also many times this word has come up. And as we all have agreed as well that women don't need empowerment, we are powerful enough, which Sujata has also said. The only thing that we require today is social empowerment, where we actually educate the man vis-a-vis woman and woman vis-a-vis man, which I think Tejaswini said that man and women cannot or should not be raised separately, making them think that you are a separate being and she is a separate being. So I mean, some time back, I had written a Facebook post to which a lot of people ridiculed, but I had written it very consciously that I am bringing up my son like my daughter, because I have grown up in a way.
Beautiful.
Because if I have been, brought up in a way like I am my parents' son, then my son can also be brought up in a way that he is his parents' daughter, because he is also the only child like I was. So let us fulfill all our dreams, having a son and a daughter. Let us bring that compassion, the word that Sujata had very strongly harped upon. Now, what I can do is my reach is very limited, and my reach is only that one simple small child whose mind is still under my control to some extent. I try to make sure that he imagines, he indulges into his own creativity, and at the same time I talk to him a lot so that he grows up with certain elements which doesn't stereotype him or the people around him. But having said that, trust me, there are so many elements, and these elements would not go so easily because they are deep rooted and they have been rooted across centuries. So I cannot expect that they will be uprooted just because I am one mother who is trying to do so.
No, but I think that speaks a lot about you, Koral, and congratulations. I mean, I really feel happy that, I was just reading about your work, and you're also a person who believes in innovation. And I think these are the techniques through which we can really, look at what we say gender equality. I mean, how children are raised by their parents, and you as a mother bring about that sensitivity, to raise a son with that
Yeah, Rakhi, I will make one very simple point, something that I had discussed long before with Sujata in, I think, Pune Lit Fest. That, I see a lot of, actually, it is very deep rooted within us, as I said, that when your child asks for something, maybe you have prepared food for everybody in the house, and your child is asking for more because he loves it. And you keep on giving that. And he or she is not made to realize that there are other members in the house who also are entitled to their share. And you give them just because they have loved it. Now, food is something so existential, and it is more applies more to boys than the girls. That food is something so existential that today, if you give the last part of your food, you say that, okay, I'm a mother, let me not have myself, and let me give the food to my child. The child, if he's a boy, because he will keep getting this reinforcement all his life, he will interpret it in a way that his right to that food is more than a woman, his right to exist is also more than a woman. So it is
I
very
fight tooth
important
and
that
I fight tooth and nail for my food with my son, you know, like chocolates, especially chocolates.
oh, high five on that. I also do the same.
I really love this conversation going like this. Also another thought about this whole divide. I mean, we are also in a digital space now, more and more. Do you see,
Rakhi, if I may add something to what Koral and Sujata were saying when we are talking about women empowerment, you know, this funny thing that happened, my house help, and as you said rightly, there is a certain section which is undergoing a lot of troubles at home, because probably their husbands have lost jobs, they are the sole breadwinners, etc. All those things. Not that it doesn't happen in educated elite, but anyway. So when I had a conversation with her where I told her that I understand you are a mother who cares for your children, you have parents and in-laws at home, you want to care for them, become a good bahu, good mother. But in order to do that, you have to put yourself first. If your health isn't good, both physical and mental, you will not be able to take care of them. So not for yourself, you are selfless, but because you want to take care of them, you have to take care of yourself. I think there can be different solutions, whatever works for that person. If this solution is going to be working for her, why not? You want to take care of them, take care of yourself first. It worked.
well, I think these are the ideas that need to be reinforced actually, as to what Coral said. You know, this whole right to food, who is entitled, not right from the beginning. If the child is taught, then I think as he or she grows up, they are more understanding of each other and of you know, this whole community feeling, of a team feeling, which should be ingrained right from the beginning. I really take that point very nicely, Coral. Also talking about this whole digital space and rural urban, there are two aspects to my question. One is that we are in the digital world and we think that this is going to be the new normal now. We are watching it expanding. I mean, on TV channels, you have a digital wing, or you know, newspapers are there, but you're stuck to your mobile, on smartphone, you're on social media. We are right now talking on an online platform. So how would you really look at this digital space being used more and more by women, and is also something that you know, is I won't say empowering, but it's also giving them creative platform, also a route to express themselves.
Should we hear from the
Can I come in?
Whoever.
Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Yeah, I think it is very interesting. Right from TikTok is banned now. I don't watch TikTok, never bothered to check it out anyway. But the social aspect of such videos, where there is an auntie who might not be, you know, really slim and all that, she dresses up, she dances, and that video is checked out by her extended family. Or there is this couple in some obscure village in UP or South India, and they put up a dance. Look at the social and psychological aspect of it. These people want to be seen, they want to be appreciated. This is one aspect of digital world. The other aspect is that in this lockdown period, I conducted workshops for children in Belgaum, in government schools in Belgaum. 2 hours of workshop for about 2-3 weekends, where I taught them creative writing. And it was so much fun. And this workshop is going to culminate in an exchange program. The students from Mumbai and students from Belgaum, the government school in Belgaum, where only 2 or 3 people have mobile or a laptop and limited digital connectivity, they will exchange thoughts and they will teach each other, peer learning. So I think it is wonderful, yeah. Otherwise, why would have anybody thought of children from Mumbai interacting with children from Belgaum?
Wow. Yeah.
Wonderful.
So that's a nice connect. Jata, you know, do you think women find it more advantageous? I mean, what's your idea on it? Whether it's advantageous or
It is.
what
Yes, it is advantageous. It has expanded their horizon. Yesterday only I was watching a YouTube video of a woman who for her own safety had recorded how her husband was abusing her or whatever, the domestic violence that was happening, and she uploaded that YouTube video very bravely, and categorically said it there on in the video that I am doing this for my own safety, so that if something happens to me or my family, this is the proof. I'm already uploading it. So you can see safety and security is also something, it gives them that, that feeling of,
Very
yeah,
strong cover, yeah.
yeah. So apart from that, otherwise also, it's connecting people. That is so important. It's building a community. Now I also run this club called Talk Buddies Club under Talk It Out Express. I run a club called Talk Buddies Club, and we have virtual meets on weekends. Weekdays are busy for everyone, but weekends, we are all, there are about 50 plus members there, all from different fields altogether. So we have from doctors to scientists to lawyers to writers, poets, of course. And then there's this artist, lovely, two artists, sketch designer, and I mean, lady fashion designer, and so many, so students. And all of us, we connect on weekends to just to relax, just to have a chat with each other, and just to have a bit of leg pulling, and play a game, a virtual game. And it makes us feel nice. We are laughing and we are smiling, and so see how the connect is. And more than 50% of those who are there are women. We have men also, but more than 50% are women.
So, yeah, so these are expressions. That's what I said. Conversations, dialogue, expressions.
Dialogues, yeah. Makes you feel happy, makes you feel okay, I am not the only one who's suffering. You're discussing things, you're finding solutions through that. So yeah, and it's and talk buddies, you need talk buddies now in this especially the lockdown. If anything, it has made you realize it's this, that you need at least 2 or 3 good friends whom you can open your heart to, you can speak.
Would you also agree, or would you say it becomes stressful, or do you think it's a good platform? Actually, it's giving you a new window to the world, especially women.
No, of course. I mean, men, women alike. I think there's a huge virtual world out there, and of course, it depends upon how much we restrain and how much we indulge.
Sure.
And when we stop and when we come out of the virtual world, that sense is very important. But having said that, the kind of opportunities that this virtual world has given is immense, and not just because it has given us the technology to connect, but also because of the personalization, right? I mean, today sitting in my room, I am conversing with you and I am getting to see the lines on your face, the smiles on your face. So I know that whatever I am saying, how you are reacting to it, and what is getting taken in what way. That kind of personalization, I think, is very, very important, because we had almost given up that adda thing, and we had stopped believing that people who are from different aspects of life, who are probably seeing each other for the first time or rarely meet, can actually sit together and have a great conversation, unless and until it's a very, very formal get together where you are supposed to take 2 steps ahead and 3 steps behind. But this is a very,
yeah, I think I'll have maybe 2 more questions, and after that I would also ask some of the participants or whoever viewers want to ask a question. One thing is also about this whole rural urban divide, or rural urban gaps. I mean, do you think we as creative people, all of us women especially, we are doing our own things, but what about women in rural areas? Do you think we find a lot of talent and potential there, but sometimes we feel that doesn't come to the fore because of certain challenges? How do you think we all, women also, or generally a community of people, can come together, create this chain of solidarity, especially in these times that we're trying to understand each other, reach out to each other, and create this collective of more empathy, more compassion, more connecting to each other, helping out each other? What is your take on that?
Rakhi, I feel that the urban women are having all the fun is a complete myth, because I have myself spent a lot of time in towns like Lucknow, in Jamshedpur, in Indore, and I have seen, I have experienced small town girls to be far more talented. Of course, talent is uniform everywhere, but there they are far more conscious about their talent. They are far more careful about their talent, and they are far more aggressive about their talent. They really know how to make their way ahead, and that the reason for that is they don't take the simple deliverables of life for granted. Each and everything that they get, they make full use of it, which at times we urban women are very casual about. They are not casual. So I think rural and semi-urban women, of course, they have the issue of the the channel-led issue, that they're a little towards the interiors. But with the technology giving them the kind of stuff that they should, I see a lot of women who are very, very aggressive about the scopes that they have, and the fitment, and their personal and social fitment in those scopes. And that I find is very, very enriching and very, very interesting. So if there is anybody who comes from that kind of a build, which I believe is a little underprivileged. Underprivileged, I don't mean in the literal sense of the word. I mean underprivileged as in having less privilege than I have. I try to give myself to that person in whatever capacity I can.
Okay. So yeah, that's where we are, and that's where we should be. Sujata, any other thought that you would like to share here? We are talking about a universal kind of approach, not really limiting it to any section or any boundaries or any binary as such. How do you think, as creative people, especially, we can really understand more, reach out more, connect more? Sujata.
So, I think in my own personal capacity as a writer, what I have been doing is I was at this Hyderabad Lit Fest a few years back, and a gentleman had asked me from the participants, he'd asked me that you create these characters who are all from urban areas, your women are these very modern looking new age women. What about the rural women? Why don't you have characters like that? And that was one thought that was a trigger for my book, The Temple Bar Woman. So that is why my character Radhika Kumari, she is a village school teacher. She is a zamindar's daughter, but she from a village, a small town village. And I also took up another character called Habiba Khan, who is again also represents the most vulnerable section of section or group of women, which are the sex workers. So I try to bring them in my stories, and the hope is also that these stories get translated into Hindi, which a lot of my readers have been asking for. So I hope that this particular book at least is translated into Hindi and goes into the hinterlands as well. Another thing that I want to say is that, challenges, I agree with Coral that the challenges that the women face in rural as well as in urban areas are the same, only that they are, they are living in the access, they may not have access to technology and to education, etc. So they are repressed. Now there's a difference between being repressed and suppressed. And that is the difference between women living in rural areas and women in urban areas. Now repressed are the ones who are not even aware. Okay, they are not aware of their basic rights. They so their state of ignorance, they act from their state of ignorance, which is now thankfully because of the digital platform, it is reducing. Now suppression is even more dangerous. Women living in cities and all, they are suppressing themselves. They are aware, they are educated, they have access, and yet they are unable to do what they want to do to fulfill their own dreams, aspirations, desires. Now that is even more. So rural women will help themselves. Once they, once they become aware, they have access, they are forward looking and they will come out of it. it is the urban women who needs help at the moment.
I think
They
that's-
are the ones who need to speak out and who needs to focus.
Yeah, I think very nicely said, because I think there are there are these points where everyone comes together actually. And frankly, where I started asking question, I think the answer is really being given by two of you right now, and they just will also come in. Is that there are points where we match actually. There is no separation. There are no differences.
Yes.
There's nothing which is so bizarre about me being in an urban area and she being in
Yes.
a rural area. I think very well said that. Tejaswini, you live in Bombay, Mumbai, in fact. What would you say here? Is it?
I'll tell you a very interesting thing that happened. My workshops were held at Kala Ghoda this year, 2020, creative writing and acting workshop. So that is where I met a couple of people from Pune. And we ended up discussing traditional types of Marathi theaters and traditional songs. And we are working on a series now, web series. So what is this series about? So few of the songs in traditional Maharashtrian theater, like songs from UP, ऐसे गाने होते हैं जो आपके सास को, आपके ससुर को, आपके बॉस को, आपके देवर को, in that song सबको legit तरीके से गालियां दी जाती है. So you have songs like that all over India, right?
Yeah,
In rural theater, in traditional theater. Imagine a person, I'm sitting here, I'm writing a play which will have such songs, working with somebody from rural area, and that woman actually, and all of this is happening on Zoom because we can record. So I'm directing her on Zoom and we'll be recording this series. और वो बिल्कुल बैठ के, शायद उसकी सास वहां पे बैठी होगी, यहाँ पे बैठ के गाने गा रही है जहाँ पे वो सास को गालियां.
No, I think we do.
It is fun. It is fun. And also, I think you get to vocalize, like Sujata said, you are able to vocalize your feelings. And somebody sitting in Mumbai or Delhi or whatever, wherever, can empathize with you. So I think that is where the gap, the rural-urban gap is closed. We all kind of have similar feelings in some way. And we need to be there for each other more than anything. उनसे भी हमें काफी कुछ सीखने को मिलता है और हमसे भी शायद उन्हें मिलता होगा. I think we have to come together.
Yeah.
And
the point which comes across here is also that, sometimes we feel that's the elite, and it's also the women who we see that, live on the margin sometimes. It's the middle class which actually gets to, I think,
Right.
either suppress their own self or not speak or come out on their own, things like that. But now I want to put this house to audience, and any questions coming in, Anushka?
Ma'am, we don't seem to have any questions, but we do have a lot of comments from our viewers who
Comments which are like questions. Yes.
Okay, this one thing that I wanted to, I don't know, add or just vocalize. Many times I have observed around us that when women, I'm talking about household, I'm not talking about professional arena. When women come in the position of power, they become the perpetrators.
Yeah.
That's not a very good sign.
That is not a very good thing. Always recall what you have gone through. When you have power with you, thoda to friction hoga, but we have to make sure that we build ladders for each other. Friction is granted, but how much of it? 70-30?
Coral can agree, understand, because there are women that she's choosing are from all grades and levels. I mean, for example, if you talk about Coral Ahilya, you talk about Kunti also. So you have women at all levels, and you're talking about how they feel at their own different positions, whichever roles they are in, isn't it, Coral?
Yes. Hello?
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. You're audible.
Yeah, from where Tejasvi left, I'm just taking from there that it's not about how you would feel like an Ahilya, and then how would you feel like a Kunti, and or how would you feel like a Coral or a Rakhi sitting here. But I think we're talking about that how women also have to be understanding, and it's not about men versus women also, it's also about how women can be a holistic personality to understand and help out, you know. At times we are just into this versus thing, which is also we have to
Yeah.
look at.
You know, what I feel is, I mean, if I am not wrong, I know which example prompted Tejaswini to put this point forward, and I'm sure all of us have guessed that name by now. But what I feel is, without trying to, defend or say anything offensive about such people, what I feel is that every woman has a series of, nuisance that they have battled through, and with some when they reach that level, they look only at themselves, they don't look around, they can't afford to look around. I mean, I say this with a lot of empathy, I say this with a lot of sadness, I because in the position that these women go, I mean, it could be a Jayalalitha, for example, right? It could be an Indira Gandhi, or it could
Sure.
be someone from our contemporary era. That once you reach that space of power, you are not in a position to empathize any longer. You are not in a position to understand that other people also have their needs. Other humans also exist. They are not in a position to do that because they have reached that level with a lot of bruises, a lot of cuts, a lot of terrible things have happened with them, and that have killed their mind in a lot of ways. And when you are mentally dead, that is when you become something which doesn't allow you to behave with humanity, which doesn't allow you to react with enough humanness, and that we should be empathizing towards them, because that cannot continue for too long. For nobody it continued for too long. At some point it has been a fall, and a very steep fall, and that is very, very unfortunate, because for a woman to reach to that level where she can influence, she can show off her power, it's very rare. And when you reach there, you it is favorable, or it would be good to set an example where you didn't give away your mind, and where you could actually pull yourself together to influence and to inspire, instead of to, you know massacre, to do a massacre.
Very nicely said. And as we are just trying to wrap up now, I must also announce here that do read Coral's book, because I think, just for the craft of it, the way she's writing, I see, Chitra Divakuna Banerjee also endorsed and talked about the book. She calls it intriguing. These are very good inspirations. You yourself, I think, through your writing, by choosing of subjects and theme, Coral has creative, a very interesting creative narrative, which we must delve into. And thank you so much for presenting to us those creative endeavors of yours and sharing it with us.
Thank you so
Sujata,
much.
any other thing that you want to say here? We were talking about positions, we're talking about women.
Yeah, I think it's the fear of losing out.
Yeah.
You have gained all of this with such you had to fight so much for wherever you are, for your position and everything, that you don't want to lose out anymore, and so you become selfish, not self-centered. And I believe self-centered is a positive term. Self-centered is taking care of yourself, and then from there, once you have taken care of yourself, you reach out to others also. You have that empathy and you have that compassion still there. But when it goes towards being selfish, then you are only focusing on yourself. Then it's again, as I said, that this sprouts from your fear of losing out. Women have to prove it every time. They have to prove whatever they have achieved, or whatever, wherever they are, they have to prove it every time, and they are tired of proving themselves, and they are tired of fighting for somebody else now, after they have achieved a certain position. So as long as we can remind ourselves, as Tejaswini very rightly pointed out, that as long as you keep reminding yourself, look at your own journey, and you were also once not here. You were down the ladder. Now you have come up. So at least show some compassion, or once you are reminding yourself, it comes to you automatically. The empathy, more you give, no, the more you also feel happy. There's a joy within, and you want to do more. Except that the fear stops you. That fear of losing out stops you, and that is where we have to pay attention, and we have to say, okay, it's all right. Whatever I have built on my own, so I don't need to fear it.
I just want to mention here that, in some of our early editions, in fact, one last edition, we had a lady, Vasundhara Tanfa Sharma, who really headed this campaign on social media about Baba Ka Dhaba, and the early couple in Delhi.
Yes, I know. Yeah, I know about that. Yeah.
And you know how Vasundhara actually took it ahead, and she shared her story with us and how she felt. So, all these stories of people, this is also creativity, I think.
Yes,
this
of course.
human outreach is also creativity.
Yes.
We must salute the courage, the spirit of women, especially on this show on behalf of Her World. It's not only a very, I think, enriching conversation with all of you here, Koral, Sujata, and Tejaswini, but also something that we need to really continue, because it's very important for so many other women out there, that we need to do this. Tejaswini, any last word from you as we're wrapping up?
Sure, thank you. The only fear that women or men as well should have is fear of unfulfilled potential.
Yeah.
I think we just have to be yourself and strive to be the best version of yourself. That is all you need to do.
That's a very empowering thought, and so brilliant and beautiful. That's how I can tell you. On a Saturday evening, especially when festivities are on, and though we can't go out, we have that spirit in us. Especially, I must again repeat that this is Ma Durga's power of Shakti, that the spirit that she's giving us continuously, and which we find in all women all across. And we only want it to be nurtured. They should feel stronger. And by being creative and by getting that intellect that they all have, but some of them actually bring it out so beautifully, like Koral and Sujata and Tejaswini. Salute to all your courage, your spirit, and thank you for joining us here on Her World. We'll continue to talk offline as well. And it was brilliant talking to you all, wonderful women. Thank you so much.
You are an inspiration
so
yourself, Rakhi.
Yes. Yes,
Yeah,
you are.
wonderful
Yeah.
talking to all of you.
Thank you.
Good talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.